It gives me great pleasure to bring in our friend, Congressman Jason Smith from Missouri. He is the brand new chair of the Ways and Means Committee. First of all, Jason Smith, congratulations. That's point number one. You have been a big help to everybody. Your service is absolutely terrific. I'm sorry for my somewhat sardonic opening, but I grow weary of the nanny state, and I think you might want to say a word about the nanny state, whether it's gas stoves, or showers, or toilets, or LEDs, or for that matter, taxes, regulations, and overspending, Mr. Jason Smith. You're not going to be a nanny Ways and Means chairman, are you?
Not at all. Not at all, Larry. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you. And I'll tell you, we need to address the issues, Larry, that real Americans care about. And what they care about is the economy. They care about the fact that they walk into the grocery store. They care about those prices at the supermarket. That is exactly what we as a Republican majority have to be front and center. And that is delivering for working class Americans. Larry, you know, back in 2017, when President Trump was in office, you were helping him. We all passed the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. We delivered the strongest, best economy in a generation, the lowest unemployment in 50 years. Those are the policies that we need to return to if we want to turn this country around.
Yes. Jason Smith, so you all promised to downsize the IRS, take out the $80 billion, the 87,000 agents, and I guess you delivered last night on the vote on the floor of the House.
We did. The first piece of legislation that we passed off the floor of the House of Representatives was reversing the atrocity that $80 billion was sent to the IRS to hire 87,000 IRS agents to target working class Americans. Republicans said, no, it's not going to happen. That's in fact what we did. And now it's over in the United States Senate.
So, all right, so they will bark and snap and they won't like it one bit, but you have made your statement, which is important. Jason, let me ask you a couple things about future tax policy. As you know, in the next few years, much of President Trump's corporate tax cuts expire, the bonus depreciation in particular. The research and development tax credit has already expired. Let me ask you this. Could you use the new rule, which requires a 3/5 supermajority to raise tax rates? Could you use that rule to stop the Trump tax cuts from expiring?
You know, I don't know how you can use that rule to stop the tax cuts from expiring, because that's within the statute of the law. The rule is a House rule, and that's not of law. That's just the policy of how we will govern in the House of Representatives. It doesn't hold the Senate to the same standards. It would be interesting if it did. But, you know, we got a lot of tax provisions from TCJA that's expiring, whether it's the bonus depreciation, R&D, which is already expired, but a lot of the individual rate tax brackets and the doubling of the child tax credit will expire in 2025. These are things that we have to address. And I'm excited about serving as Ways and Means Chairman. I plan to have hearings. I want to have hearings of the successes of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act and what didn't turn out exactly the way that we wanted to have, and maybe what tweaks we might need to do to make those provisions better. But I can tell you the American people is wanting to Congress to use the tax code and trade policy to make sure that our country is energy secured, food secured, and healthcare secured. And those are policies that we're going to have to push forward to in the House Ways and Means Committee.
It may not be entirely your jurisdiction at Ways and Means, but, you know, you mentioned the child tax credit, which was kind of kidnapped by the Democrats. No work effort, no work requirement is required in that. Is there any way you can help to restore those work requirements in that particular tax credit and any other germane tax policy?
I'm a true believer in work requirements. It was part of what I presented to the steering committee and to be the next chairman of this committee. If you look at just the proof that happened back in 2021 when the American Rescue Plan suspended the work requirement and that expanded child tax credit that they put in, that huge $2 trillion spending bill, just all of 2021, only 1.6 million people returned to work. When that provision expired December 31st, just in the month of January and February alone, 1.7 million people returned to work. Work requirement matters, and we have to make sure that that provision is always included. But we need to look at the 70 plus different welfare programs that go through 5 different committees, so that we're adding the work requirement for able-bodied healthy adults in all aspects. That will help the workforce. That will lift people out of poverty.
Yes, that really will create new opportunities, grow the economy. Absolutely, 100%. I know there's going to be a vote, or I'm reading there's going to be a vote on the fair tax, which would abolish the income tax and substitute a consumption tax. Do you have a thought on the fair tax? It's kind of tricky business because it sounds awful good, but I would say to you, partly in jest, but partly seriously, you know, if we could repeal the 16th Amendment, which was the income tax amendment, I myself might like a national sales tax, but I'm always worried repealing the income tax without getting rid of the 16th Amendment, you'll wind up having both a sales tax and an income tax. Anyway, your thoughts on the fair tax, Jason?
Well, Larry, just in regards to taxes in general, the less taxes, the better for the American people. I think that's what we have to be discussing. But I think all aspects of how to make the tax code simpler and better, and where the government's taking less of your paycheck, I'm open to looking into and making sure we're hearing from real Americans. I want to have hearings, Larry, outside of Washington, D.C. I want the Ways and Means Committee to be the committee of the people. And we're going all over the country, whether it's Jasper, Indiana, or Puxico, Missouri, so we can hear the real issues that they're facing, from trade, from tax, you name it. That's what we need to deliver on.
Is there a way you can press forward? This is a sort of perennial thing, but we've got the House back. The Republicans have the House back, and you got the Ways and Means back, yourself as chair, to push for dynamic scoring. If you have less spending, lower borrowing, lower tax rates, fewer regulations, I would argue those create incentives to, you know, at the margin, work, save, and invest. And we should get dynamic scoring out of that because the revenues always come flowing in. Is there a way to push for dynamic scoring?
There absolutely is, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We need to make sure that the policies that we push are based on the right information, the appropriate information that's going to get us to the end result. So I totally agree with you. We did that the last time Republicans were in Congress. We're working towards it.
Last one, Jason. Ways and Means, of course, has jurisdiction over trade. What do you make of the China trade story? We did the phase 1 deal now a couple years ago, back in 2020. I don't know whether that deal succeeded or not. I think parts of it succeeded, parts of it didn't. In your judgment, should we keep the tough tariffs on until we're satisfied, particularly with respect to stealing property, intellectual property, and the forced transfer of technology? Don't you think it's useful, worth it, to keep the tough tariffs on, to keep the pressure on Xi?
Larry, this administration's been completely out to lunch when it comes to trade policy. They've been non-existing. President Trump was very involved in trade policy. The biggest thing that he did was stand up to China. We have over a $350 billion trade deficit with China. It has to be addressed. The Ways and Means Committee is going to have to push aggressively to bring this administration to the table so that we can open up these markets for our manufacturers and farmers. When you talk about the tariffs, we need to look at them. We need to analyze them. We need to have public hearings. What has worked? What has not worked? And that's how we move forward. It's all about making sure our country is secured when it comes to energy, food, and healthcare. That will be our priority. It's a priority for the working class, and that's what we're going to be fighting for.
All right, Mr. Jason Smith, again, congratulations on becoming chair of the House Ways and Means Committee.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. You bet.